Section 1. The best cookies or the worst? There was once a company, a very big company. It had a very bold name. The name was written in giant, cheerful letters on the side of its factory. It said, "We sell the best cookies." What a claim. It sounded so wonderful, so delicious, so true. This company started its business way back in 1960. It promised families all over the United States a taste of pure happiness. Their cookie boxes were bright and colorful. They showed pictures of smiling children munching on perfectly round, chocolate-dotted treats. The boxes practically screamed, "Buy me! I am the best!" And people did. Oh, how they did. Every supermarket in the country had shelves stacked high with these famous cookies. From sunny California to chilly Maine, you could find them. Mums and dads would toss them into their shopping trolleys. They thought they were buying a simple, lovely snack for their children. They believed the name on the box. After all, why would a company lie about something so sweet and innocent? It was just a cookie, or so they thought. The company was very, very good at making people believe in their wonderful, amazing, best ever cookies. It was the most popular cookie brand in the entire country for many, many years. But this story is not a happy one. It is a dark story, a truly dreadful story. Because behind the cheerful name and the colorful boxes, there was a secret, a horrible, dirty, dangerous secret. The company was not selling the best cookies. Not at all. In fact, they were selling the very worst cookies in the history of the world. These were not just bad cookies that tasted a bit stale. No, these were cookies that were actively, horribly, monstrously bad. They were a menace, a plague, a disaster baked into a circle and sold for 99 cents. The people who bought the cookies had no idea, not a single clue. They would open the box and see what looked like a normal cookie. It was round. It was golden brown. It had little brown lumps that looked just like chocolate chips. They would take a bite. The cookie was hard. It was dry. It did not taste very good at all. But people thought, well, maybe it's just a cheap cookie. They did not know that with every single bite, they were eating something truly, truly terrible. Something that would make them very, very sick. Section 2. A recipe for disaster. Now, you might be wondering, how does one make the worst cookie in the world? Well, the recipe was a secret, a very, very secret and very, very disgusting secret. The workers at the factory did not use a big, clean mixing bowl. Oh no. That would be far too normal. Instead, they would take a huge, sticky lump of dough. They would carry it outside. They would plop it right onto the dirty, grimy road behind the factory. Yes, the actual road, where cars drove and where birds did their business. It was utterly, disgustingly, fabulously foul. Then came the mixing. They didn't use a mixer with big shiny whisks. Their special mixing tool was a car, a rusty old smoke-belching car. A worker would get in, start the engine with a splutter and a cough, and drive, back and forth, right over the top of the poor, sad lump of cookie dough. The tires squashed it flat. They rolled bits of gravel and dirt and who knows what else into the mixture. This, the company believed, was the quickest way to flatten the dough. It was efficient. It was also revolting. What about the chocolate chips? Surely those were normal? Wrong. The chocolate chips were not chocolate at all. They were a cheat. A complete and utter fake. The workers would get buckets of cheap plastic jewelry, little beads and tiny gems. They would take these worthless trinkets and paint them. They used a thick, gooey, dark brown paint, the kind of paint that smells awful and never quite dries. These painted beads looked a bit like chocolate chips if you squinted, in the dark, after not sleeping for a week. They were hard as rocks and full of nasty chemicals. And for the final touch, the secret ingredient, before the cookies went into the oven, they needed to be smooth. The workers didn't use butter or a rolling pin. They used truck oil, thick, black, greasy oil, the kind you put in a lorry's engine. They would dip their hands into a can of it and rub it all over the surface of each cookie. It gave them a strange, unnatural shine. It also made them incredibly dangerous. This was their recipe: dough from the road, mixed by a car, with fake painted chips, and a final polish of engine oil. Truly, the worst recipe in the world. Section 3. The smell of deceit. If you were to walk inside the We Sell the Best Cookies factory, the first thing you would notice was the smell. It was not the lovely, warm, sugary smell of a normal bakery. It was not the smell of melting chocolate and vanilla. No. The air in this factory was thick and heavy. It smelled of smoke. A bitter, choking smoke that poured from the ancient, filthy ovens. The ovens were always too hot. They burned the edges of the oily cookies, turning them black and creating a permanent cloud of gray smog that hung in the air. It made your eyes water and your throat feel scratchy. The factory was a kingdom of grime. Everything was covered in a thin layer of black soot. The walls, the floors, the machines, even the workers themselves. Nobody ever cleaned anything. Why would they? The cookies were made on the road after all. A little bit of factory dirt wasn't going to make them any worse. The whole place felt like the inside of a chimney that had been coughing up smoke for 58 long years. The workers shuffled through the gloom, their faces smudged with grease and soot, their lungs full of the foul air. Despite the horror inside the factory, the cookies were a huge success. They were sent out in shiny trucks to every corner of the United States. Every supermarket, from the biggest chain to the smallest corner shop, had them in stock. The colorful boxes were a familiar sight in the snack aisle. They were cheap. They were always available. People trusted them. They saw the happy pictures and the bold name and believed the lie. The trucks that delivered them were the same trucks whose oil was smeared all over the cookies. It was a perfect, terrible cycle. And so, people ate them, millions of them. Children took them to school in their lunchboxes. Adults dunked them in their tea. They crunched on the painted plastic beads thinking they were just very hard chocolate chips. They tasted the faint, unpleasant flavor of road dirt and engine oil, but they did not understand what it was. No one suspected a thing. The cookies looked like cookies. The box said they were the best. And in a world full of promises, people wanted to believe that this one at least was true. The deception was total. Section 4. The Crumbling Empire. The sickness began slowly. At first it was a mystery. A person would eat a few cookies and then, a few hours later, feel a terrible pain in their stomach. A sharp, twisting pain, as if their insides were being tied in knots. Doctors were confused. They called it a stomach bug. They told people to rest and drink water. But it kept happening. More and more people were showing up at hospitals, clutching their bellies in agony. This was just the beginning. The cookies were not just causing tummy aches, they were causing horrors. The hard painted plastic beads that were supposed to be chocolate chips did not digest. Of course they didn't. They were bits of jewelry. They were sharp. They scraped and tore at people's insides, causing internal bleeding. Some people would choke on the hard, unchewable lumps. The toxic paint and the engine oil were even worse. They were poisons, slow poisons. Over the years, thousands of people who ate the cookies regularly developed terrible diseases. Cancers grew in their bodies. Their hearts grew weak, leading to sudden, fatal heart attacks. For decades, no one made the connection. The illnesses were so varied, and the cookies were so common. How could a simple snack be a killer? It seemed impossible. Doctors looked for other causes. They blamed viruses. They blamed lifestyles. They blamed everything except the one thing that all the sick people had in common, the colorful box of cookies sitting in their kitchen cupboard. Thousands of people died. Their families mourned them, never knowing that their deaths were caused by a greedy company and its monstrously awful recipe. The secret was safe, but secrets, especially secrets that big and that terrible, cannot stay hidden forever. The number of sick people became too large to ignore. Scientists and investigators finally began to look at what people were eating. The trail eventually led them to the smoky, grimy factory with the cheerful name. The truth came out. The world was horrified. The company, exposed for its decades of deceit and destruction, collapsed. It went bankrupt in the year 2018. The factory closed its doors forever. But the memory of "We Sell the Best Cookies" remained, a dark stain on history, a reminder of the worst cookie the world had ever known.